We are going to, basically I'm going to ask questions to you guys. Very diverse panel. I would ask that I'm not going to direct any questions directly to any particular person. I just want you to kind of join in. You can raise hands and kind of dive in. Obviously, we know that, the pandemic has hit a lot of companies hard. We want to be sensitive to some of the companies that probably won't ever make it back because of the pandemic. But we've learned a lot, through this pandemic about how we need to really, build better as we get back to business with the new norm. And so that being said, the question I'm going to pose to the panel is really something that, applies to every one of you in one way or another. And so we realize that, there are some challenges, for corporate organizations when it comes to doing business with small businesses. And as you know, in California, small business and in most economies, they're the backbone of economies. And so my question, that the audience, can take notes on is, what are some of the challenges that corporate, government, and private organizations face when it comes to sourcing or collaborating with small local businesses? And if there are challenges, we can dive back in it. Are there any things being implemented to help on your behalf? And so who wants to tackle that question first? I'd love to, and Mark, I know you were a small business once, so I'd love to hear what you have to say as we begin tackling that question. So Jonathan, I see your hand up with Aramark.
Sure, John, thanks again. And really excited to be a part of this event. I'll say just in answer to your question, one of the challenges that we see at Aramark with sourcing for small and diverse suppliers has to do with the scope and scalability of our needs. Most of the time when we have new sourcing opportunities, a lot of times, we're operating on a national scale or regionally where there's a lot of ground to cover. So finding suppliers that can kind of meet that need, the scalability need. Another issue is, a lot of our clients that we source for or to meet their needs, it varies, what they need varies from client to client. And a lot of times we're sourcing from a client to client basis. So suppliers that we source for one opportunity might not necessarily fit for the opportunity that we're sourcing for tomorrow. So to address some of those challenges, we've been relying heavily on some of our external partnerships with organizations like NMSDC, WeBank, different labor organizations, and partnering with them, sponsoring some programming to help provide developmental programs and opportunities for our key suppliers. So we hold training events, developmental events, just things to kind of help build the capabilities of our current and existing suppliers. We also have been relying heavily on them with sourcing new suppliers. So those are some of the things that we're doing to mitigate those difficulties.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Jonathan. That's a wealth of information, and I know all about some of the scalability. That being said, I know that Mark, I want to hear your insight just a little bit on what Jonathan covered. And again, as I mentioned, you were a small business, and then I want to go to Director Anna, because I know the state of California has got their own challenges when we look at small businesses, but as we look at entrepreneurs, which again, that, want to work for the government entities as well as, corporate entities. So Mark, can you shed some light on, what are things that you did to become successful? Also, you were small at one point, you had these same challenges. And so we'll just kind of go around and see what you have to say about that.
I think each of us sort of is faced with answering the big question: what are you going to do with what you've got? Whether you're in government, you're a big company that has got a bunch of grocery stores, or you're a small business, you got to do that assessment. What am I going to do with what I got? And allocating our resources is the biggest decision that we have. And right now, I see one of the biggest challenges that we see in small business is having trouble finding people, right? That right now is, I think there's nobody out there that's having an easy time having great employees. So I think that's really where we have to do that assessment is how do I get, the most bang for my buck with my teammates? And many times that comes around how we run our companies, how we run our organizations. So it has to do with how we recruit for new talent. So I think these are areas where I think we are forced to focus right now. But I think it starts with that assessment. And nobody's coming to bail us out. I think that's the one thing that I would say in terms of being successful. Anybody listening, my advice or my thoughts about how to win is don't expect anybody coming around trying to fix it for you. As a business leader or as an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to solve that yourself. And it may mean making some tough decisions and reallocating resources to different parts of your business that need it most or that are most profitable. So, and it may mean building a stronger culture for your organization. And it may mean, there's all kinds of, I'm an investor today. And so I'm investing into companies that provide employee incentives. I'm investing in other companies that and they're using technology to do that. So there's ways to sort of create efficiencies for driving employee engagement, for making the recruitment process a lot more efficient. So I would say step back, assess your situation, and don't be afraid to make the hard choices.
And thank you for that, Mark. Anna. Oh, Chris, you want to jump in?
No, please.
Okay.
Please.
Well, good morning, folks, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you too. Thank you for inviting me to be in the panel. Going based on what Mark said and developing that culture, I think there's also an issue with access to state or county or city contracts. And when you're a small business and you're thinking about where you're going to look for that, capital to move your business forward, but where you're going to look for opportunities, oftentimes government public sector contracts are behemoth and it's difficult to navigate. And as a small business, you may not have the depth in your workforce to go after those contracts. And so the state of California is trying to make that accessibility more, create more ease. We have 4.1 million small businesses that are registered and 20,000 small business and disabled veteran business enterprises in our Cal e-Procure database. But when you're starting off your business, you may not know where to start. So I do want to plug in that for small businesses interested in working with the state of California or working on projects with the state of California, there are some steps you have to take to become a registered small business or a disabled veteran business enterprise. And the same goes for counties and cities. And I came to DGS with the mindset of we should be sharing resources with our county and city counterparts. Government, statewide and regional should share some of these databases so that a small business can access, either the most local close project near to their domicile or a large project across the state. So beyond the culture, I would say it's, to me, the other challenge is the accessibility, not from the small business alone, but also from state departments who should be reaching out to small businesses, and where do they find them?
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, Jonathan, are you going to address supply chain, or is that coming down the road, or would I take you out of whack if I introduce that now and some of the challenges?
No, I mean, the question was overall, what are some of the challenges, and what I want to, and realizing that, some of the challenges, these are realistic. And really, I want to get to hopefully what we're looking at for solutions, or what we are doing or can do what they're within our own positions, right? Because there are challenges. Supply chain is going to be, so go right on in and go ahead and talk about supply chain. I do have a comment though that I'd like to at least have you all thinking about. And one of those things is, as we talk about this Build Back Better, I know that, those state contracts can be very intimidating. And actually, you know, for a small business to go after it, market probably tell you and not get it. Yeah, it hurts sometimes, but you keep going. You don't just give up. And so, you know, I recently had a large corporate entity said that they don't make exceptions for small businesses. You know, they treat their small businesses just like a big business when it comes to contracting or putting forth your best effort or whatever you can do. And so supply chain is going to be an issue, especially if you're a smaller business, because you don't have those relationships yet. One of the things that I like to say is that my brother and I came up with the term for success, you know, knowledge, position, opportunity, right? So right now what we're doing is knowledge phase. We're giving people free information and hopefully they can position themselves for an opportunity. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about supply chain.
Yeah, I think it kind of falls into actually building a culture, or having the ability to build a culture. And you know, for the first time, well, I'll say I think it's a perfect storm in this country that the logistics system is really not capable and wasn't built to handle the surge that we're currently experiencing. It just isn't. And I think we have an over-reliance on the Asian markets. And we probably need to shift some of that to ease some of the tension to the Latin markets. And then we need to produce more here in this country. We've gotten away from that. I think that would be ideal. Some of the results are, you know, we can't get product. Therefore, truck drivers aren't driving. To be candid, our federal government is competing with us right now, paying people more to stay home, whether we like to hear that or not. So we can't get people to stock our shelves. Inflation is rising. And I think the next thing that we're going to hit, and I'm not taking a position on it, are really vaccine mandates, and what percentage of our workforce we lose in lots of different capacities. To fall back on building a culture and hiring, I could hire 300 people tomorrow if they would just walk in our door and they wanted to work. We are an ESOP, which means we're employee owned. Our employees who have been with us for over a year and worked over 1,000 hours probably have close to $40,000 worth of stock equity today based on a year ago. So we think that's really important to help develop our culture and to keep our people on board. But we're still having a tremendous time hiring people in this marketplace.
Got it. Okay. No, I appreciate that. So, you know, to some, I mean, I've heard, you know, we've got supply chains, there's scalability. And, you know, really just, you know, staffing as a whole is something as we look to getting back to business, some sort of norm. All of these are, you know, true, they're real. Corporate government agencies are having them, and then even our small businesses. And so, you know, this call and part of this is, you know, to kind of help the small businesses that are still going after that have made it through the pandemic, right? And they're looking to build back better, and they want to be a part of what HaneyBiz and growth is doing and what DGS has to offer, or Aramark, or, you know, Food for Less, San Miguel markets. What's one piece of advice or one thing that you would tell, you know, a small business that, you know, is looking, that's, you know, saying, hey, I want to eventually get here? What's one piece of advice that you give them as we kind of, you know, move to the next question? Each of you, I'd like to hear. I heard a little bit from you, Anna, about the portal that's available. And, you know, you also mentioned potentially some of those other, you know, big prime vendors working with the small businesses. Is there any piece of advice that each of you could give, you know, the small business person that's listening in today? Okay, what can I take from this that I can put in plan today? It may not result in direct business immediately, but it will begin to prepare me to propel, you know, to scale to maybe one day participate in a government contract, or, you know, get a product in San Miguel markets, or, you know, be a local supplier for Aramark, or a company that, you know, Haney says, hey, I want to invest in.
You know, I can go first because I want folks to know where they can find the link for the certification. And so the Cal eProcure, just as it sounds, CAL eProcure.ca.gov has a step-by-step guide on how to become a certified small business, or a disabled veteran business enterprise with the state. I mean, once you become certified, you become part of this database that folks can reach out to. I also want to say that as we think of small businesses, we oftentimes think of size and capital capacity of small businesses. And I would like to start thinking of small business also in the realm of being sustainable, tearing off from what Chris was mentioning. When we look at sourcing from our local vendors and we look at businesses that are California based, that's a sustainable purchase actually, because you're pulling it from within. That's economic recovery, and sustainability isn't only environmental preference purchasing. Sustainability also includes the social equity component, local sourcing, and social equity. So I look at small businesses as also sustainable purchases for the state because they typically go hand in hand. So I think that would help a lot with supply chain eventually when you source locally. And as we put on not only the hat and in the advocacy of small businesses, we're also advocating on the sustainability front. So I think you get, two things in one when you work with a small business.
So, and I appreciate that. And I want to dive in and just ask a question because somebody may be thinking it already. But, a lot of times, when it comes to the state of California, so are they always looking at the lowest price or the lowest bid, or does that matter when you're a small business? Obviously, it's going to be different in the corporate world to some degree, but could you talk a little bit about how that, because, if there's a small business saying, well, how do I compete with these large entities and I've got a product, I can't get my pricing down to be competitive?
Well, it's not about only low bid. It all stems on what type of solicitation. So it isn't, California isn't all based on low bid only. If the solicitation is best value, other things go into that calculation. So I also want to put out there that departments in California are the ones that have the purchasing authority. DGS is a facilitator. DGS does procure, but our departments, when they're given their procurement accreditation, are the ones that put out a solicitation for either a service or a product, and that all will depend on how that solicitation is written. I also would say that for small businesses, in terms of working with the state, to be tuned into the Cali Procure website. And this is where I know this is where it's difficult for a small business where you already have to, your owner probably is also doing the work, is doing the solicitation, is kind of handling all aspects of the business, and then to be over and also watching the Cali Procure. But there's a lot of great information there. And, working through your small business development councils or your chambers is also a very helpful way to be tuned into the information. So again, to answer your question, it's not only low bid, it's how the solicitations are written. And to registering is, I think, step one, and then starting to think of your business as a sustainable business and a California business would be my third recommendation.
Got it. I love that. Sustainable in California, keeping business in California. That'll make California great. Okay. Did anybody else want to weigh in on that? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just have an example. We're close to $1 billion in retail sales, but we're very much part of the community and very much want to partner with entrepreneurs in specific communities, whether it's locally grown or they have a unique product. I have an example I'm sitting here looking at. One of our store directors called me several months ago, not closer to a year ago, and said, there's this michelada mix that's locally grown in Stockton, and it's becoming a really big deal. So the owner of the company, his name is Jesse Hernandez. He called me and said, I have a great product. And we said, well, come on down to the office, come meet with us, let's talk. We looked at his product. To date, right now, he has sold $320,000 worth of michelada mixes, which sell for like 99 cents a piece. So and now he's branching out into chili seasonings and other things. As I look at an opportunity, he created the product. he had the insurance, he did his due diligence, worked out a logistical system. We actually helped him work it out by putting it in our warehouse, because it's always hard when you start a business. And just so you know, we forego our slotting fees, which is another tremendous hindrance for someone trying to get into the grocery business. So if we have a local person that has a unique brand that we know we can sell, we will go out of our way to help them become successful and to partner with them. And that's just one example of many I can think of.
Got it. Okay. Mark, no, Mark, you can't get Michelada. I'm looking at that. No, no, Mark, I saw your wheels spinning as he's talking about this. You're muted. You're muted, Mark. You're muted. I'm mute. Yeah. Sorry.
But I have to just celebrate Chris and his comments, and I really love what Anna said too. But Chris, it's all about, I mean, partnering with other small businesses is it can happen in a town like Sacramento. We're kind of like a small town, even though we're what, 3 million people. So having people like Chris and his company saying, hey, I want to partner with others, I mean, that's phenomenal. I think the question originally, though, toward the group was, how do you work with us? And so what I'm doing these days, so I'm invested into several companies. A few are in the in a realm that might benefit from knowing Chris. But we've recently started something called the Growth Factory. And the Growth Factory is an accelerator with an accompanying venture fund. And the opportunity that we see is that there's an asset class in venture capital that is exploding. It is absolutely red hot. 64 billion in the first quarter was deployed in North America. More than that, 70 something in the second quarter. Third quarter was above that. And Sacramento's not getting their fair share of the venture dollar. We only got like $250 million all of last year. And now more than ever, venture dollars are going, I mean, it's a frothy market and they're going everywhere, but we need more investable startups here in the region. So I am focused on venture backable type of companies that have the ability to scale. So anybody that might be listening that has something that might be have technology behind it or have a vision of taking it national or international, those would be the companies that we would probably be most likely to want to work with. And right now we just invested into 15 companies, a variety of companies, some in the healthcare space, some in the consumer products, some in B2B software, but those kind of companies that really have the ability to scale on a national, international business level, those are the ones that we're focused on today. And they're at the very early stages. So we'll inject some capital and then we'll run them through our accelerator and help them take their idea or, you know, whatever stage their business is at. We're assuming they're more at the startup level, and get them enough traction so that we can attract some of those venture dollars from here in the region, but also outside the region.
Got it, Mark. So what I'm hearing described, Mark, is, you know, basically sounds like, you know, when you select a company, it's got to have some potential in it. Some people have to see, you know, the benefit and value, but some of the obstacles that we talk about when we talk about insurances, when we talk about just the finances, the infrastructure, right? The small businesses are not going to have. Growth Factor would have that for a small business, or, you know, right? So you might even have some state contracts or government contracts. So I know how difficult it is to beat an incumbent, but it can happen. So
well, what we're doing is we're trying to tap into this backyard advantage. So we're rallying the leaders of the region together as mentors. We've got some of the people that are very well known in the entrepreneurial space and have scaled companies and sold them. These are sort of the type of people that are coming in as mentors. Same type of investors coming in, engaged investors. So what we're doing is we're helping people to get some of those early wins, because that's really what you need. You know, at the beginning stages, I'm sure when in Chris's, you know, when they first started the business, every small business, it ends up having a major pivot somewhere along the line, right? So you really have to decide what kind of business you are, what market you're going to attack, and many times you're narrowing down that niche. And so we help them to sort of, I guess, more perfect their business model, if you will, so that they have something that we can really pour some fuel on and take to the next level. Because typically people come in and they're trying to do a little bit too much. And you know, I think it was mentioned earlier that the owner is wearing several hats, and nobody builds a truly great company alone. So we see so many businesses or business leaders, or excuse me, entrepreneurs, trying to do it all by themselves when really they need to bring in the right partners to really have a chance of building a truly great company.
Got it. Got it. Did you bring in partners, Mark?
My brother was on mine, but now that we're starting the growth factory, yeah, I have 2 partners helping with the growth factory. And then I've been investing with my own money for the last several years. But now with the venture capital fund, we're tapping into the community to say, hey, put your money where your town is, throw in a few bucks for the most promising startups, and let's help them together.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for that, Mark. And Jonathan, I want to, you know, I want to have you dive in as well. I know that, you know, Aramark is a pretty large, one of the largest hospitality companies in the world. And you guys recently are you know, are doing some business in Sacramento in California, but you're headquartered in Philadelphia. I believe that's headquarters. And so if you could just chime in, you know, obviously, you know, you're doing some local things, you know, when it comes to, you know, being here, you know, in California. But I think, you know, Anna, you said it best, is that, you know, it's sustainable when you can actually use local California dollars. And so is that something that, you know, when a company enters a market, I know Chris is doing the same thing, that you know, make a you know, intentional effort to use those local companies, and, you know, really small businesses, if there are, so that they can one day hopefully be able to scale. So could you just kind of give us a little bit of your take on that from the Aramark position?
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, Jonathan, we really value investing in our suppliers and even potential suppliers on a local basis. We have a program where we track our economic footprint in all of the geographies that we operate in across the U.S. So in every state that we operate, we track our footprint as it relates to not just supplier diversity, but economic growth, job growth, et cetera. Particularly in the Southern California market, we have some development opportunities that we're sponsoring even this year. We've partnered with the Southern California Minority Supplier Development Council, where we're sponsoring a Center of Excellence programming that focuses on professional development, business development for some of our suppliers. We've matched them up with corporate mentors on a one-on-one basis, et cetera. So even in other markets like Chicago and other places, we're heavily invested in supplier development. And I wanted to speak on something that you mentioned that was really poignant to me was, you know, you mentioned knowledge, position, and opportunity. And it really spoke to something that I come across a lot with our suppliers, you know, where, you know, they'll reach out to us and, you know, they say, I registered in your portal of your diverse supplier portal, and I reached out to this person and to that person, and, you know, I didn't get any business. You know, you guys aren't really focused on working with small and diverse supply, and they're frustrated, rightfully so. But I would say that, you know, everything happens in time, right? And it's beneficial to take the time to make sure that you're in position for the opportunity that you're waiting for. We've had situations where we reached out to suppliers and we put them in place at certain locations, and you know, not even just on a scalability standpoint, but even operationally, sometimes there were some things there that were a little bit underdeveloped, right? So we want to take the time to make sure that our suppliers are ready for the opportunities when they are presented. And so I would again say that my advice would be to take advantage of the resources of some of these organizations that have these developmental opportunities. A lot of the agencies that assist in certification also provide a number of programs and events matchmaking, et cetera, to help suppliers develop and be positioned for those opportunities that they're waiting for.
Great, thank you for that. And so, and that kind of leads to, like you said, it's one of the things that, you know, after, you know, this entrepreneurial world, you hit your head on the wall and an opportunity comes and you're just not ready for it. And so you fall flat on your face. I can tell you failure more times than success because of really not being ready or not being positioned, you know, for those opportunities. And so, you know, you bring a good point. I guess what I want people to know is this is, and what I think I'm hearing the same thing, because when I look at, you know, state service to entrepreneur, venture capitalists, to, you know, corporate chain, another corporate chain, this Build Back Better doesn't just weigh on your shoulders. You know, it's going to take a community. So it's going to take, you know, people like yourselves, like myself, you know, to really mentor and work with others, so that we can really get back to better, because there are truly some obstacles that, you know, small businesses are going to have to overcome to be positioned for the opportunity. And obviously when they're not, you know, then that reflects poorly on whatever entity that you're working for or you're supplying, i.e., you know, if the state of California, you know, wants, you know, tons of oranges and I can't supply them, well, I just messed up the whole supply chain, right? So I get that. So I guess my question is that, you know, your incumbent suppliers, some of them, you know, as we look at building back better, is there any motivation or any, you know, direction, as, you know, from your level as the director and, you know, to your staff? I know things have to roll down to Mark, what you're doing to say, hey, you know, I want to be intentional about, you know, making sure that, you know, we know small businesses have been hit. We know that some of the small minority businesses were already, you know, suffering before. Some aren't coming back. Some are actually at the worst. And that's not to take anything away from another business that's not a minority that's awful suffered, right? So everybody suffered in this. But is there anything that you know, obviously I know, you know, what I can do, trying to do my best. This is part of it, you know, that education to give people the knowledge. I just don't want people to walk away thinking, oh, well, I'm going to, like you said, Jonathan, you know, I'm going to go and register and, you know, they're calling Chris and saying, hey, Chris, I saw you on the saw you. I got this incredible barbecue sauce and I went in your shelf, right? It's like, whoa, time out. How many sales have you had? Do you have the insurances? You know, all this stuff, you have to put the work in. But I guess, do you guys have a core of incumbents that you've got those relationships with, as we look at better ways to kind of build back better, that we can say, hey, you know, director, you know, Lasso can say, hey, you know what, here's what I want, here's what I bring and I want to do. And it will go about making some slow change. Same thing with Mark. Sounds like a lot of you guys are doing it, but I just want to, you know, give the listeners just other innovative ideas of things that you're doing or things that can be done as we look to kind of build back, you know, better for everyone.
Sure, I can answer that. Just like business owners can't do it alone, and they shouldn't do it alone, DGS doesn't do it alone either. And we partner with small businesses. We have a couple of advisory groups. We have the minority-owned small business task force that are many talented small businesses who we partner with, and we consider their opinions and their anecdotes, their learned lessons or lessons learned, and we work to make the process easier, better, and more accessible, as I mentioned. We also have a small business advisory council. Similar to the minority-owned small business, the Small Business Advisory Council is, you know, statewide, has been around for a long time as well. And it's the same process. It's a roundtable and we're all equals there. And so they hear from us the opportunities that exist at the state, and we hear from them the hurdles that they have. You know, for small business, not being paid on time could be a make it or break it moment, right? And if we are not at the table hearing that, how can we change that? Because as government, we're handling so many different things. So those are two that come to mind, but those are not the only ones. We also partner closely with the small business development councils, and I mentioned chambers. And procurement is at one of my top 3 priorities when I took over this position, and I was appointed to DGS in March, but I started in April. I let my staff know that I'm very, very tuned into procurement and making sure we can fine tune it to create more accessibility and ease. And it's the idea of not only the economic recovery, but as I mentioned, sustainability is one of the other core values that I'm pushing forward, and not sustainability only in environmental preference purchasing, but sustainability in the other two core values that I mentioned, social equity and economic recovery through local sourcing. I also want to say that a lot of small businesses pivoted during the emergency, and they had to find new and alternative ways of doing business, even what products they were offering or producing. And California found itself in a pinch trying to figure out how we were going to purchase, a lot of the products that we needed for the emergency. Through these roundtables and discussions, we saw benefit in creating an emergency registry so that we now can go to small businesses, and this emergency small business registry was just launched at the beginning of October. We'll make sure to put it in the chat right now. I'll put it in the chat. But for small businesses who want to be reachable and they provide services, whether it's cleaning services or products that we're going to need, and we're going to be in emergencies, as we can see, it's going to be just kind of rolling from wildfires to, unfortunately, the pandemic that hopefully will be out of soon. But we are constantly we find ourselves in states of emergency. So having a registry and identifying those small businesses that we can go to creates that incumbent list that you mentioned, Jonathan.
Great, thank you for that. It's awesome.
Can I weigh in a little bit too? What are we doing? I take the question as, what are we doing that's kind of intentional in helping small and diverse businesses? A couple of things that I would say to our audience is, and you've been involved with, you've been up in my office here where I do something called Hanging with Haney, where I meet with entrepreneurs. We talk about how great we're going to be. We talk about the obstacles that we face, and sometimes it's just providing a little bit of guidance or inspiration, because confidence can be pretty fragile. So end up in a small group finding benefit in just the community aspect of being with other business owners. So if anybody's out there that wants to be involved with a Hanging with Haney and come visit me at my office, I would love to meet you. And maybe that would be a benefit. In terms of intentional investing, we're invested into a number of women. I think half of our portfolio is women-owned businesses and several people of color. And there's actually a couple of funds in town. Again, these are venture capital funds. So these are for scalable type of opportunities. One is started by Kevin Johnson, our former mayor. It's called Black Capital. I'm invested into that company. There's that fund, which is diverse companies. I'm also invested into Black Star Fund, which is also investing into people of color. And they're both based here in Sacramento, in case people didn't know that. But I do think, get out there. The first thing you have to do is show up. If you want to create opportunity for yourself, first thing you have to do is commit to showing up. And you got to get out there. I know it's been difficult with the pandemic to show up, but you've got to do that. So being on a call like today is important. You get one good nugget from Anna or Chris, or meet Jonathan. These could be great opportunities. So I say congratulations today for just showing up. And hopefully you did take some notes like Jonathan said.
Awesome. Chris, go ahead. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I think we're kind of touching on Build Back Better and supporting local businesses, and how do you approach us? Building Back Better in a sense means to me hiring local, supporting local businesses, being aggressive with our philanthropy in local neighborhoods. But really, it's always interesting to me when I hear people and companies identifying policies for this. We literally have an open door policy. If somebody calls us and they have a product, our buying team will sit with them, we'll meet them. We may coach them and advise them on what they need, and we'll identify whether or not we think it will work in our stores. and help them develop that product. And then again, the key for us is retailers charge slotting fees. They could charge, Jonathan, you know a little bit about this. Safeway may want 3 cases per store to get on their shelf times 1,600 stores. You can't afford to do it. We waive those charges. If you don't have a distribution network and we believe in your product, we may ship it straight to our warehouse and we become the network till you get off the ground and you're able to identify a network to grow your business. So it's so organic to us to do that in the neighborhoods which we do business in. Continue with our deep community engagement, and then we're working with our people on jobs of the future and developing and training our current people. So that to me is, I think, the Build Back Better, as well as identifying. We are so approachable. I can't make it any easier other than getting our phone number and calling us and making an appointment. And we'll help. We will show you scenarios where there's like items. We will help you with cost structures. We may even help you get into our distribution network with our wholesaler and challenge them to waive those charges because it's a project we believe in.
Right. No, thank you for that, Chris. I would say, I do want to, I want to preface with this, is that if you're listening to Chris and it sounds, I mean, look, makes me want to just go sign up and go in the store and say, hey, I got a product. You got to do your homework first. You have to show some level of success. You can't just, have a product and you don't have a plan put together. You're only selling, a few bottles. You have to do your part. So Chris, I'm trying to keep your phone from being inundated with calls because
I appreciate it.
Yeah, right. You know how entrepreneurs will be like, hey, just call him and my product's on the shelf. So for those of you that are listening, you have to have some level or show some level of success. And that success doesn't necessarily mean you're selling 300,000, like you said earlier today. It could mean that you've got, you're selling 500 bottles, a month in your local market. And so when the grocery store comes to your town, then great, you built that database. So it's not going to sit on a shelf. Jonathan, did you want to add on before? I mean, we're close in the time. We're going to go to question and answers here shortly, but I want to give you the opportunity to, to kind of weigh in and add your.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just wanted to add that, given the last year to 18 months that, we've experienced, it's been really important for here at Aramark for us to continue to invest in small and diverse purchasing and suppliers. And, we're proud to say that, over the last fiscal year, despite, overall procurement decreasing, we were able to maintain, even slightly increase our diverse spend percentage year over year. We've been seeing much more intentionality on our goal setting as it relates to our supplier diversity program. And as I mentioned before, we're continuing to sponsor partnerships and development opportunities for our suppliers. We have a partnership with Certify My Company where we sponsor some of our key suppliers to go through the process of obtaining a third-party certification that's both locally and nationally. We partner with several organizations, both nationally and locally, that provide certification. So those are some of the things that we're doing to, we're continuing to grow our focus and attention on supplier diversity and helping our suppliers to reach their goals.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. Tell you what, it's been extremely powerful, informational. I want to open it up to questions for the audience and Q&As. And if they don't have questions, I do. I'll ask them for them. But that's good. And I just want to recap and let those that are listening, know that it's really important that, what we're doing today is you get the knowledge. And, Mark said it, create opportunity. I like to say, part of creating opportunity is positioning yourself, so that creation is getting in position. And whether that's, registering on the DGS portal for emergency to, looking at plugging in with the growth factor in Haney or, even Aramark registering and going through your local supplier diversities and then really not giving up. So that, if I could leave anybody with any advice, this is, it's not a sprint. Mark, you want to sprint? We want to sprint. Entrepreneurs want to just, hey, state, I'm ready to do business. Let's go. Well, it's not a sprint. This is a long endurance run. And so, I do like collaborate, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. Jonathan, with Aramark being an extremely large company, especially coming to California, there are government contracts for food service, and there's small businesses that you could potentially put on there to really increase your points in the contract. So I think that that's a match made, right? You can do some good with sustainability. Not saying anything's going to happen, but as I always like to, my entrepreneurial mind says these are things that we can kind of do. But I do want to kind of go around and just get each one of your final thoughts on really just as we build back better as a nation, as we lead in California, with really showing I'm proud to be in California, because we get the opportunity to show no offense, Jonathan, you're in Philly, no offense at all, okay, but we get the opportunity to lead and move forward and show the rest of the nation how we build back better. And so I just asked any of you, all of you, to share one by one your final thoughts. And I want to thank you all for your time today. It's been very informational. And I think the audience, they're busy writing down just a lot of good information. So ladies first, Anna, I'm going to call names and go to you.
Sure. And we are very California proud. And I stand with you on that, Jonathan, that what California does and leads, the nation follows. And we're very innovative on a lot of the small business recovery and help that we're doing. So I want to highlight 3 things that the state of California is doing to help businesses recover and as they face the challenges coming out of the pandemic. I mentioned one already, which was the emergency registry. It's first of its kind that I know of. Perhaps other states have it, but I thought it was a very innovative idea that came from this collaboration with our advisory groups, working with the governor's office, and then also internally, our procurement division is extremely agile in putting forth great, efficient resources for small businesses and DVBE, or disabled veteran business enterprises. The second that just also came out is a new IT master service agreement. So the master service agreements that is being put out includes technology, digital, and data consulting. And the MSA also has expanded, is expanded to include some digital and data consulting services. And we hope that it will attract very specialized small businesses. So that's another plug for those technology businesses out there. And finally, another thing that we did during this last year and a half is that we extended the certifications. We granted over 6,500 small business and disabled veteran business enterprise automatic extensions on their certification, knowing the hardships that many businesses face during the pandemic. So DGS and the state as a whole leaned in to help the economic recovery and put California first.
Awesome, thank you. And while you were going with that wonderful information, Chris, a question came in for you, so I'm going to read it. Mr. Podesto, how early in the scaling did you get involved with the Michelada product? Did they have the mass production capability in place to supply your store, or was it something that you assisted them with? That's from Mr. Gerald Williams.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know the genesis of the company. I think what happened, they started becoming localized, small independent retailers here in Stockton, I think outside some bars. So I don't know when they began. And I think they had to scale up once we went on board to handle our volumes, but we allowed them the latitude to scale at their willingness when it was ready for them. So we didn't say, if you don't have it in every store today, you can't do business with us. We said, if you can scale to 3 stores now, we'll strategically pick the best, and then we'll grow as your capacity grows, if that makes any sense.
Great. Nope. Thank you for answering that question. And since you have the mic, would you like to give your final thoughts?
Well, I have a comment to Mark. because I heard in his bio that he likes to do CrossFit. So I was going to tell you, Jonathan, if you want to arrange a competition, you can pick the charity that we donate to, and Mark and I will meet up in Sacramento. I enjoy that too. And then no, I look at Build Back Better. To me, honestly, it's kind of the bricks and mortar that we're currently doing. We will continue to be engaged in our communities. We will continue our philanthropy. We will continue to partner with local organizations. I don't have any profound thoughts other than to continue doing what we're doing, focus it in the communities. You know, our store directors who manage the stores have a budget and have the latitude to really partner in their communities. Soon we're coming to Broadway and we'll be in Oak Park. That director will have the latitude to spend in that community, to invest in that community, and he will have the support of the corporate office.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, for all that you do. We look forward to you coming to Sacramento off of Broadway, and I'm gonna take you up. Haney, you're going next? Did I get a yes on that CrossFit challenge? Because I'm gonna put that together.
Look at this guy. I'm like, come on now, look at him. His
Listen.
veins are popping out of his arms.
Mark,
I noticed that at the beginning. I'm like, what does he do? Does he do CrossFit? That was my first thought. So I would love to do something fun like that. I like CrossFit. I like yoga. So, and I think for entrepreneurs out there, you know, it's a pretty stressful job. And Chris would probably agree that there's nothing like a great workout to clear your mind and put you in a position to make great decisions, because a lot of times we get caught up in these businesses working 60, 80 hours a week, and you forget to eat right, sleep right, and get some exercise. So I highly encourage a really hard workout for dealing with life's challenges. In terms of final thoughts, you know, the way I look at it is, speaking to the entrepreneurs out there, you are the heroes of the American economy. You are taking the risks. You are making the sacrifices. You're doing this to put food on the table for your family, but you're also doing it to create opportunity and figure out a way to change the world. So I salute you. It's not for everybody. So if I had advice, I would say, watch what other people do, and maybe most of society is not you. So we can get ourselves sort of caught up in what maybe the average person might do in terms of, you know, working for the weekend, playing for the pension, and so on. And that's not entrepreneurship. That's not what it's about. John, you said it's not a sprint. You didn't say it was a marathon, but I think you make a great point that you know, nobody can go on a sprint for 30 years straight. I don't care who you are, but you know, when you think about what are you going to do with what you got, assess your situation, because the opportunity might be right in front of you. And if it is, be ready to sprint, because I look at, if you're going to be truly successful, you're going to need to do some sprinting, right? You are going to need to be able to push yourself when it's time to seize the opportunity. So don't get caught up in that it's supposed to be easy. If you're an entrepreneur, you didn't choose the right profession if you would want it easy. It's going to be hard. Expect it to be tough. We fail every day, and you just got to pick yourself back up and get back in the game.
Awesome. So incredible. I mean, this is profound advice. So I know all too much about that. Thank you, Mark, for that. Jonathan, and we'll wrap up with you. But last but certainly not least, go ahead and give us your final remarks.
Sure, and I'll be brief, Jonathan. I just want, you know, one word that comes to mind when I think about what I want to leave folks with is resiliency. I think if the last year has taught us anything, it's that you know, it pays to hang in there and to sometimes scratch and claw and do what you have to do, just to stick around, and you know, opportunities will find those who find a way to hang in there. So I would leave folks with that. I would also like to share just if you like more information on Aramark Supplier Diversity Program, you can go to aramark.com/supplier diversity, where you can register in our portal of diverse suppliers and find more information on not just our program, but some of our goals. You can also email supplierdiversity@aramark.com.
Awesome. Well, we're about out of time, you all, and I just want to, thank every one of you for spending, your Friday, end of the lunch hour with me, to give, California and those others in other places such valuable information and tools that they can actually take back and implement today, as we look to build back better, not just California, but we'll lead in California and show our nation how we build better. So thank each and every one of you for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll thank the Chamber as well, the Asian Pacific Chamber, for hosting this 13th annual. And we hope to, see you guys back once we're build back better and we can actually talk about what we built, how much better it is. So thank you all. I appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our panel, it was a great opportunity to hear directly from business owners, consultants, grant providers, and what they're doing to ensure that our local businesses recover from the last year and a half. One of the things that was mentioned on the conversation that I wanted to also point out and address was a kind of a throwaway line about unemployment benefits and stopping the labor market. If we're talking about back to better, we have to use better policies. Data has shown that the expanded unemployment benefits aren't bringing down the labor market, but the things that are low wages, not having healthcare coverage, not having support systems for childcare or for in-home support services for our family members. These are the policies that we like to talk about and address and make sure that are part of the solutions. So when we move that forward, we have to talk about those as a way to get back to better.